am answering the question on how Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development was different from Pygot's theory. Specifically, more in Pygot's theory, there were 6 sensory motor phases, but 4 distinct phases. And the first stage was from birth until the age 2, and the children in that age range learned more by reflexes. It was more of a rooting and sucking kind of a natural approach, understanding that objects existed even though they weren't necessarily in their line of sight. Also that there were actions to movements, meaning that they could move a mobile by kicking it, and understanding that they could do that. In the second stage, in 2 to 7, children believed that people thought the same way they do. In the third stage, ages 7 to 11, they have an improvement in thinking, and in the fourth stage, they have a master of solving problems. Vygotsky did not believe in stages. He basically just had 2 different components in his cognitive behavioral theory, and in basically trying to emphasize Vygotsky's theory, children learn through interactions with others. They require assistance from others to learn what they need to know, and that also that children learn, what children learn is based on what their culture that they live in. So the understanding of that is that there's a zone of proximal development that a parent or somebody who had the knowledge that they possessed would teach a child, and that child would learn from that person. They would continue to learn until at some point the person who was teaching them would realize that the child had the understanding, and then at that point would back off, and that child would be able to continue to take over the knowledge that was necessary for them to move on with the task. Scaffolding, which is another one of Vygotsky's, or a portion of Vygotsky's theory, was just the degree of assistance that was provided to the child. At some point that the scaffolding, it should decrease as the child became more competent at a task. So as a teacher, you would teach a student what they needed to know on a math skill, and once you felt that the student was competent enough to learn that math problem and continue on with those math problems, then you would back off in your teaching skills. The learning process always takes place via social process interactions. Someone who's knowledgeable about something, and then obviously the child would be the someone who's in the process of obtaining that knowledge. In regards to the cultural portion of it, he believed that children were taught what they needed to know within their culture, and that I completely agree with. I believe that every child is taught differently depending upon the culture that they reside in. There are certain different aspects within different developing countries that a child needs to learn certain behaviors. I know some of the examples that they utilized was in different countries where they had to learn how to handle cattle and their farming, and those kinds of different examples that they would use, that they would have to learn how to do that, where in some other countries that is not something, a behavior that wouldn't be necessarily learned. I believe that in both aspects, in both cognitive developments and theories that they have, I believe that they're both very much interesting, very much utilized today, and I agree on both of the aspects of the cognitive development. I think that children do learn differently at different stages of their life, but I also believe that there's a lot of things that they learn through interacting with other people. Some of them I think that are more like instinctual, that they come at the time during those time frames of their lives, ages 0 to 2, and what they interact and do, and 2 to 7, and so on and so forth from there. I think that there are some aspects that those are definitely developed within those time frames. And Pygot even states that you can't teach a 1-year-old something that a 4-year-old should do, and no matter how well your teaching skills are. And I agree with that. So I hope that that kind of answers some of those questions for you. Thank you.